Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?
This whole party.
You down with D&D?
Yeah, you know me.
You down with D&D?
Yeah, you know me.
I'm down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?
This whole party.
Welcome to Down with D&D. I'm Shawn Merwin, and today our guest host is Chris Lindsey. Chris's official title is Specialist Product Marketing at Wizards of the Coast, and among his many accomplishments and responsibilities have been or are currently overseeing the operations of the D&D Adventurers League, the creation and stewardship of the DMs Guild, various partnership channels between D&D and third-party creators, and much, much more. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you.
So how's life treating you out there on the left coast?
On the left coast.
Yeah.
we are doing well. I have been given permission to be a hermit, and therefore I am a hermit.
Okay. That's a lot of gamers, I think, are in that situation where it's like, okay, I am going to stay home and play games, or at least wish I could play more games.
Yeah, no kidding.
So we've had you on the show before, but for new listeners, could you give a rundown of your D&D life and include, if you can, how you started working at Wizards, because I think that is a wonderful story.
Sure. I have been playing D&D, or I've been involved with the game since 1981, I want to say. So a good long time. I was very young back then, and in 2000, I went to Gen Con for the very first time, and on the way back from Gen Con, I was looking forward to actually a wait in the airport for about 5 hours. And I bumped into a friend of mine who introduced me to this individual by the name of Stephen Radney McFarlane. Mm-hmm. And Stephen also had a very long wait, and we sat and we chatted and we chatted and we chatted and we became friends over the course of our airport slog, as it were. Mm-hmm. So at any rate, we both came back home and did things that we were doing. And Stephen and I were friends for quite some time, but it wasn't long, though, before he got to read one of the first adventures that I wrote for Living in Greyhawk, and really liked what I was doing. So after some conversations and the fact that he was just getting hammered with work, editorial work, as the content manager for the RPGA, they brought me in to assist him with the editorial responsibility, basically helping lift that load. Mm-hmm. And I edited adventures as a contractor for about 18 months for Wizards of the Coast.
Okay.
And then as a freelancer for a few months after that. In 2003, I was hired on as the only member of Wizards of the Coast customer service with a master's degree. Mm-hmm. And I came in there and I was hired specifically to manage like the Dungeons and Dragons questions and so forth, which I did. And as part of customer service, it wasn't long before I managed to wheedle my way up mm-hmm. into a situation where I could basically be teaching others great practices on how to manage customer service and how to manage our fans in that respect, by email, by phone, and so forth. And I was the training and operations manager in customer service, where I basically recreated their entire curriculum for bringing and onboarding on new customer service reps. So
Cool.
from there, in 2010, I was looking for something new, and I joined as a job share. I joined the D&D team, working on the brand team, and I was supposed to be working with them for 6 months, and then I would go back to my old job. And 3 months in, they offered me a full-time position. And in that same year, I wrote the initial draft of the a proposal for what eventually became the Dungeon Masters Guild.
Wow. So there was quite a gap between when you conceived the idea and when it was actually implemented.
Yeah, there was quite a gap. The Dungeon Masters Guild came around, and that was the initial proposal, and I spent the next 4 years trying to convince people that this was a good idea. And after that finally happened, we spent a couple of years trying to figure out how to implement it.
Mm-hmm.
And so by 2016, we had launched the Dungeon Masters Guild, and there you have it.
Mm-hmm.
So as a former freelance contributor to D&D, I knew what a challenge it was to try and get work and so forth. And I thought, what a fantastic way it would be to service fans in a creative community, because as we all know, D&D is this massive creative community of people who are making up their own content constantly.
Mm-hmm.
What a great way to service this group if we could provide a place for them to kind of congregate and to show off their stuff.
Yeah.
Without there being a whole lot of gatekeeping outside of nothing racy, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was fun. Anyways, I was instrumental in the business end of putting together 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, which I'm really proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is pretty much history. I did, when the Dungeon Masters Guild launched, I took over the D&D Adventurers League,
mm-hmm.
and with a focus on trying to bring the entire community together, right?
Right.
So we have content creators, and we have people who want to play, and trying to refocus those efforts into something that was a little more cohesive. And ever since then, I've been trying to basically bring the community around to something that really does a great job of supporting their play, as well as supporting our products that we're putting out for them to enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great system that was implemented and that continues to grow in terms
Mm-hmm.
of servicing the various kinds of fans that are out there, right? Because as you said, there are the players, there are the DMs, there are the creators, and then there's different kinds of creators too, right? There's the homebrew world builders, there's the adventure writers, there's the rules writers,
there's a place for all of them on the Dungeon Masters Guild.
Exactly.
To show off what it is that they're capable of doing. And we're constantly keeping an eye, right? So looking out for new talent.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't lie, I will say that of the literally tens of thousands of pieces of content that are on the Dungeon Masters Guild, a very small percentage of them actually do particularly well
mm-hmm.
With the fan base. And if you're looking at those pages and you're looking at the ones that are top sellers and stuff, those are the products that you really should be looking at if you're trying to create something that you'd like to sell. Or, if you just want to show off what you've already got, and that's cool, you can put it up there with no expectations, and that's fine too.
Right. There's
nothing wrong with that. It is a creative community,
mm-hmm.
regardless of what your personal goals are when you enter into it.
Yeah. It's funny because I get that question probably more than any is, I want to get started. I want to be a freelancer who works for Wizards. How do I get started? And it's hard to answer that question because when I started in 2000, it was a whole different world.
Oh, yes.
Not just in terms of games, but just in terms of the world itself. And so, I can tell my story of how I got there, but it's different from the story you just told. And it's going to be
mm-hmm.
different from someone who started in 1980, as opposed to someone who's starting in 2019 or 2020. So, there isn't any one right answer. There are a lot of right answers, but they all require you to do the thing you want to do, regardless of whether you reach your goal immediately or not.
That's the key. I mean,
Yeah.
every time I've seen an interview with people who are famous writers and so forth, who write novels and things, people will always ask them inevitably that question: how do you become what you are? And the answer is always the same. Well, I just started doing it, and I continued doing it, and I did it every day, and I wrote and wrote and wrote. So if you want to create content for D&D or for other games, you just start creating content,
Mhm.
right? And just expect that the first pieces that you create aren't going to rock like you really want them to.
Right.
Okay, that's not the way it works. You really have to. I mean, and you're going to think that they're cool, and that's fine, and that's awesome, and you might enjoy them with your group, and that's also awesome.
Mhm.
Okay, but the fact of the matter is that in order to write to a larger audience, it's really a much different mindset, and you need time and practice to kind of figure out how that works for you.
Yep. And there are things that you can do tangentially to the creating that you want to do. I mean, you mentioned you got your break when you met Stephen Radley McFarland
Mhm.
coming back from Gen Con. Well, the fact is you were at Gen Con.
I was at Gen Con.
Right.
Yeah, I went to Gen Con in Milwaukee. That was a hoot.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh wow, Gen Con it was such a huge thing. And the funny part is, I don't know if this is funny, haha, but I mean, in our current environment, I don't know how we're gonna ever be able to return back to shows like that,
Right.
uh, that size, because you know, this pandemic has really shocked us all. And I don't think that people coming together in like 50, 60, 70, 80,000 people all at once is feasible anymore.
Right. Right. And won't be for a while, if ever.
Yeah.
And that's the question that's on everyone's mind, is how is this changing everything? Right. It's not just changing your individual life. Well, that's important, obviously. It's how is
Yeah.
it
Yeah. Yeah.
changing
Yeah.
the things that we haven't even considered yet.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think that what we're going to see, and this, of course, is just from my own personal perspective, is I think we're going to see, um, if there are events, they're going to be smaller events.
Mhm.
And by events, I mean uh, events where people show up and are actually there face to face. They're going to be much smaller.
Mhm.
And by smaller, I mean a few dozen or maybe 100.
Mhm.
You know, um, I think these larger events, I think there's a place for them online,
Yeah.
and I think that there's a way to do that. And I've already, without giving away my future plans, started trying to puzzle through that.
Mhm. Well, that leads us really well into our topic for today, which is the D&D community in the time of the pandemic. So,
Yeah.
like, for a large portion of our population, gaming population, D&D has always been a social activity above all else, right? You go to a friend's house, you go to the game store, you go to a convention, and you sit down with people and you interact. And obviously, the internet's expansion and the advancement of online tools has made playing remotely, playing online easier than ever. But still, many people feel the weight of that isolation, not being able to sit down with others and share a joke or share a meal while you play. So can you talk about what Wizards of the Coast has been doing to help the gaming cause, if you will, during this time?
Absolutely. So, our first kind of shot across the bow with regards to trying to assist our fans with continuing to enjoy their hobby, um, was we put a web page up that had a variety of resources that they could utilize in order to continue to play the game with those using internet connection, obviously, um, with their friends and their families and so forth during this time. And by the way, I'm gonna pause here when I say we. There is a group of us at Wizards who are basically the response team for this time.
Hmm.
They include myself. They include Bart Carroll, who is a masterful web producer
Mhm.
and other things. And I'm sure I don't know what his official title is. All I know is that he's the guy that makes sure that all of the cool internet stuff happens.
Mhm.
And I know it's really more complicated than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Bart's been around, it seems like forever now.
Yeah, Bart is fantastic.
Yeah.
And then Mike Merles has been a fantastic resource as far as helping us with assembling a content plan. And then I went out and pulled together all sorts of content, and I made contacts with like the Guild Adepts and with our partners at D&D Beyond and Fantasy Grounds and Roll20, and we all kind of like gathered together as a force,
Mhm.
kind of like 10 5 mini lion bots becoming one giant lion bot, right?
Right.
And we assembled this content that we wanted to just say, hey, you know what? We know you love what we're doing. That's not a concern of ours. What we want to make sure is that you have an opportunity to continue to enjoy this. So we're putting out this content for free, or making it available for free. Some of it is stuff that you can get for free and keep it, and some of it is stuff that you can get access to for free for a little while, and then later on, if you want, you have to buy it.
Mhm.
But either way, just basically facilitating play,
Mhm.
by first giving you those tools, like pointing you at places like the Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds virtual tabletops, or Discord,
Mhm.
where you could play online, or you could use, if you have the means, you can use like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and there's all kinds of applications and stuff where you can get together with your friends and talk to each other and laugh and have a good time. You can even eat while you're playing, and share recipes,
There you
right?
go.
While you're talking over what you're making, and brag about the cool stuff you made, or just talk sadly about the bag of Cheetos that you've got, and the Mountain Dew that you're drinking.
Yep.
So that's fine too.
Yep. Just a small tip here: for the love of all that's holy, if you are eating while you are playing, mute the mic. I've started trying to play online, and that's the one thing. If you're going to take anything out of any lesson of online playing, it's that. Please mute the mic while you chew.
It's a true story.
Yes.
Mute the mic, or we also play like where we speak with each other over Discord, and there's an option to have a button on your keyboard where you push to talk.
Yes.
Right, and you can use that so that you can eat, and then when you're ready to talk, you push the button and you talk.
There you go.
Right. So yeah, totally. Gamer etiquette, very important. It's not just important to smell good to yourself while you're there by yourself in your home, or with your family in your home, but it's also important that you not like make your friends listen to you chomp.
Yep, that's very true. So you've been doing this kind of remote freebie page for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
Is there a time limit on that, of when it's going to end, or is it something that's going to be ongoing?
Not per se. It really all depends on how long this all lasts.
Okay.
To be perfectly honest, we have content plans through the end of this month, and we are shortly going to get together to start talking about protracting those so that we can continue to support the audience as long as we can, and as long as this whole situation lasts, where people can't get together in small groups and play. And so we imagine. I'm imagining personally. I mean, no predictions, because I'm not a medical expert or anything like that.
Right.
So I'll addendamize this whole statement with that. that this is not going to end anytime soon. This is going to be a thing for us through the year. And so we will make plans to try and help support people through the year. We might change up our plans at some point and do different things and stuff, but there will be stuff there.
Okay.
Some of the content that we provide, though, I'm really most excited about actually isn't game content,
Mhm.
right? We have put up some really awesome coloring book art that people can download, print out, grab your Crayolas and get crazy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean,
Something to do between games.
yeah, for parents out there who, are stuck home trying to help homeschool their children and find things for them to do, things like that are just as important as, any game material that you can
Yeah,
create.
maybe they're not old enough yet to play D&D, but you can still share your love of fantasy art and the hobby and so forth by showing them the picture, letting them color it, and then while they're coloring it, you can give them a dissertation on the beholder.
There you go. Yes.
And its ecology, right?
There you go. I mean, it's never too young to start teaching the important things, like
It's true.
what the different eye stalks on the beholders do.
Yes, reading, writing, beholder.
Yeah.
That goes together.
I know you can't talk about specific things that Wizards or you are doing, but has there been any sort of shift in focus with what's happening, in terms of long-term plans?
Actually, not at the moment. There hasn't.
Okay.
No. As far as like what we are working on, it's very much the same.
Mhm.
The biggest shift for us is in how we work, which I can totally talk about.
Okay.
Like we are essentially a virtual company at this point,
Hmm.
and we are all working from home, and uh, we have all of our meetings online through various means,
Hmm.
and we are very much in tune with the technologies of today's so far that we can all be essentially productive
Right.
and have meaningful work hours and so forth, and make this whole thing work. I'm still working on projects that I was working on before I walked out of the building in order to work from home, and none of that has really changed.
Cool.
Just the only thing that changes is that my easy chair at home is way more comfortable than my chair in the office.
Yeah.
and I, it's just it's really hard to describe. I mean,
Yeah.
the shift in that we have our own virtual happy hours where we have like basically meetings set up during the week where we all get together like at the end of the day and
Mhm.
talk about whatever,
Right.
nothing important, right?
Yeah.
Um,
But
that's always fun.
for a creative company, I think that's super important to do. I've worked at home since probably 1995, and I've been able to do whatever job it is: teaching, project management, quality assurance for software, game design, whatever. I've always been able to do it, and I've always been able to take gather whatever materials I need and turn out what I need to turn out. But there's always something, especially in a creative field, about sharing these ideas and talking not just about your work, but about the movies you've watched and the TV shows you're watching. And like you said earlier, your recipes, because
Yeah.
that may not speak directly to a project that you're working on, but it refuels those cells. Those creative cells are refueled by just banter.
And don't forget like the endless stream of like the most current pet pictures that show
Yeah.
up in these meetings.
Yep.
They're adorable, and sometimes hilarious.
Yep.
So yeah, we do all the things. We talk about movies and the world and what's going on and what are we binge watching this week and all that sort of thing.
Awesome. So Wizards has been giving away some of this content, but Wizards also does a lot of other charity work throughout the year. Could you
Yeah.
touch a little bit on that?
Absolutely. We are huge fans of charities that have a focus on helping children,
Mhm.
specifically, which is why we have for many years now endorsed Extra Life as an event and as a cause to support like throughout the year. I know last year we had an effort around Red Nose Day, and this year I believe we're planning something as well
Awesome.
for that as well. Yeah, and um, as you know, Wizards is a wholly owned subsidiary of Hasbro,
Mhm.
however those official business terms go. Um, and Hasbro is a company that makes toys,
Mhm.
and they also are big believers in supporting charities that help children.
Mhm.
And so we are aligned in that regard, and it's really nice to have that kind of support from mothership, as it was. So we will continue to basically we don't do we can't just like help every. There's a lot of charities out there.
Mhm.
So what we've chosen to do is to really focus in on a couple of things that are very meaningful to us and that we can support in a very meaningful way, um, and help to kind of like gather our fans around these efforts to like help children's hospitals through Extra Life and
Right.
help with child poverty and so forth through Red Nose Day,
Mhm.
and really focus in on those so that we have the ability to drive a great impact.
Yep. Well, I know that like the Adventurers League has done a great job of finding ways to give certs or run events that directly support Extra Life. You couldn't last year. You couldn't throw a stone without hitting a game day that was running an old Epic, for example, to raise money and selling tickets and doing raffles and so on.
Absolutely. And as the head of the Adventurers League, I fully support all of that activity.
Mhm.
I want to encourage people if they want to run an event in support of the Extra Life or of Red Nose Day or anything else that assists children or any other worthy cause for that matter. Um, just reach out to the admins and we will work to support you.
So let's talk about the Adventures League then for just a second.
Sure.
It's been going for 9 seasons now. Uh, in the past, for previous editions, now is the time when we're generally talking about the next edition or
Yeah.
the next thing, and there is none of that in sight. And the Adventures League, at least from what I've seen, is still going strong, if not growing, like the game itself. Um, how have you seen anything in the Adventurers League that has drawn your attention or that has made you shake your head or scratch your head or shout with joy?
Yes, all of those
All of
things.
the above and
How
more.
long do we have?
We have as much time as you want to talk.
My biggest crusade when it comes to managing the Adventurers League, and this will never change. Those of you out here who are listening, um, it will never change until people themselves change,
Mhm.
and that is the right for anybody, no matter who they are, or what they believe, or what they look like, or whatever, to participate in an event, to play Dungeons and Dragons, and enjoy being a part of a community that is bigger than themselves.
Mhm. And
Key term:
to feel safe within that
enjoy.
community. Yeah.
Yes, they should feel like they are a part of that community not an outsider inside the community.
Mhm.
They should feel included, and they should feel like people are drawing them in to the warm embrace of the love of Dungeons and Dragons,
Yeah.
and of that larger community of people who all love to sit down and play games,
Yep.
regardless of what they are. Inclusivity and equal treatment, and just be nice, folks.
Mhm.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is something that I am going to be shouting for a long time. I feel.
Yeah, it's strange because people of our age, Chris, we grew up, some of us, in areas where just by playing D&D, you were deemed an outsider. You were deemed
Absolutely
as something different. And there are some people of our age who kind of not just accepted that, but kind of wore it as a badge of, you play D&D, you're an outsider, you're different. And I think for some people it's hard to change that mindset to, come on in, welcome, the water's beautiful, and so when I talk to people our age, I'm always trying to hammer that point home of, maybe we were outsiders back then, we don't have to be anymore. And not only that, we can do what our peers didn't and be accepting and
exactly.
Yeah.
That was the thing, is that when I was in high school, and I'll just straight up say it, I graduated from high school in 1987.
Mhm.
Which was a very different time.
Yes.
But if you came to me and you said you wanted to play in my D&D game, or at that time also I was playing a lot of my Champions game, or whatever the case may be, I did not care who you were.
Mhm.
You immediately were a friend.
Right.
I didn't care about any of the other personal details. As soon as I knew that you wanted to get involved and you were earnest about that,
Mhm.
you and I could totally just be friends.
Right.
And outside of that, though, there was a lot of loneliness back then.
Sure. It's very true. And so that's why I love this idea of, with the Adventurers League, to make events that are running official things, like epics, send in a code of conduct that is enforceable by them, to help that acceptance be spread throughout the game.
Absolutely. We will make this a better world one player at a time, if that's what it takes.
True. Very true. So is there anything else that you can share with us in terms of your, whether through the Adventurers League or DM's Guild, or anything that you touch, anything to look forward to for us people home isolated and looking for any hopeful information?
Well, there's not a lot I can say just yet.
Okay, that's fine.
There will be key announcements made in the not so distant future about cool things happening.
Mm-hmm.
I can say, yes, there will be a season 10.
Woohoo!
Yes, I have already started hiring authors and designers and other folks, editors and layout artists to make that whole thing happen. And yes, it is going to rock.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have a good time.
Excellent. Glad to hear that. So, is there anything else you want to share before I shut this whole operation down?
Just that I'm at home and I'm playing D&D. One of the things I do want to say is I've been putting together my silver lining list for this entire situation.
Nice.
It's just a list of little observations of things. I want to share a couple of them with you. One of them is that I now have a D&D game with all of my friends who live in LA.
Sweet.
Right? And It's because before they always thought to play D&D we all had to get together. Now that nobody can get together and they want to play D&D, I said I'll run a game online, and they're like, yeah. So now I get to play a D&D game with my LA friends, which I'm super excited about. I also play, of course, with my other local friends and so forth as well online. And I'm getting more fluent in all the VTTs and stuff out there than I ever have been.
Yeah.
Another silver lining thing, and this is more general. These days, when somebody asks you how you're doing, they're genuinely interested in the answer you give.
Yes.
They want to know, are you okay? I cannot tell you how much I love that, other than I love it to infinity and beyond.
Yeah. I mean, I literally have a rotating schedule of people who I'm checking in with, just because I know like they may live alone, or they may be a super extrovert who have been forced to become introverts. So check in on them and give them the chance to talk. And it's super important. And I think we are, while we're not interacting as much as we did before, we are interacting more in different ways with people who we may not have talked to. Like, you would have never been playing with those LA people,
right?
If this
I wouldn't have been playing with them unless I saw them at a convention. We might get a chance to play.
Yeah.
So the other thing, I'll just go with one more thing, and that is that a lack of vehicles out on the streets has made our skies bluer than they have ever been.
Yep.
There's a positive impact to the environment from people working from home. And I got pictures of, or I got streamed pictures from LA, and there was an actual blue sky in LA.
No smog, huh?
No smog.
Wow.
I was astounded. It's actually up there past the smog. It exists. So, I mean, there's going to be a new normal after this whole thing ends. And some of those new normal things are going to be a pain in the butt. Some of these things are going to be good for us.
Yeah.
And I wholeheartedly embrace them.
Awesome. I am hoping that turns out to be the case.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And before we shut down, I wanted to give a few Patreon shout outs to some of our backers, John C. LeMay, John Carney, Kevin Lovecraft, Michael Dinos, PK, Richard Wyatt, Schmitty, Tiberius Star Crash Smith, and Todd Crapper. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Yes, that is a real name. It's the best name in gaming. So thank you for supporting the show. If you would like to support the show, anyone out there, for just $1 a month, you can help us pay our costs and editing and site hosting and all that. And you also get access to special content from Down with D&D, from Misdirected Mark Productions, and from Pandas Talking Games. If you can't help us with a Patreon backing, that's fine. We understand. Help us by giving us a review on whatever medium that you listen on, or just talk about us on your social media sites. Say you enjoy the show and other people might listen. We like that. Chris, where can people find you if they want to follow you on social media?
If you want to follow me on social media, the best place to do that is on Twitter. And you can find me at Onnatrix, ONNATRYX.
There you go.
If you want to see pictures occasionally, you can also find me at that same name on Instagram.
There you go. You can get blue sky pictures.
True story.
All right. And you can find me on Twitter at Shawn Merwin, or you can go to the Misdirected Mark forums at forums.misdirectedmark.com, where I will chat with you about whatever you want to chat about. Down with D&D is a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Hey, Chris, what are we going to do now?
Oh, it's time to go kill some monsters.
Rawr.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?
This whole party.
You down with D&D?
Yeah, you know me.
You down with D&D?
Yeah, you know me.
I'm down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?